I dedicated 4 years of my life to building a revolutionary logistics system, only to be fired and erased from the company's success. But while they celebrated, I quietly held the system's core component, FlowCore, under my own name. When the system went live, I turned my firing into leverage, bringing the company to its knees without a single destructive move. I was buried up to my elbows in a mess of wires when I suddenly heard my name being called, Beatrix Whitmore, project lead, final phase. But it wasn't said with any hint of praise. It was Ron, our operations manager, rattling off the Monday meeting updates like he was reading from a list of spoiled groceries. I'd poured 4 long years into this project, weekends sacrificed, sleepless nights debugging, and endless cups of coffee just to keep it Danielle, and somehow, after holding it all together with grit and duct tape, my name barely made it past his lips. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't a respected teammate, just a disposable part they'd wear down and toss once I stopped running. I never joined for glory anyway. I started because I believed in the mission. We were building a multi-site logistics automation system from the ground up, something resilient, scalable, and sharp enough to change warehouses across the country. What I didn't read Daniels back then was how fast the company would hijack my work and parade it around as their own masterpiece. They loved the headlines, they loved the client applause, but they didn't love me. Ron kept droning about cost efficiency, while my boss Marcus, the kind of guy who thought a smirk and a polished LinkedIn post made him a leader, sat there already chasing his next big deal. When I caught his eyes as I gathered my notes, he gave me that look. You know the one, the silent warning not to get too comfortable. 2 days later, the official blow landed. No private talk, no handshake, just a calendar invite called Transition Discussion. Marcus didn't blink when he said it, time to cut the useless staff, like it was no more serious than a busted coffee maker. For years of my sweat reduced to a number on his spreadsheet. I nodded, smiled politely, and walked away. But here's what no one in that glass office understood. While they were busy SDE Daniel and credit, I was quietly documenting everything. Every single update, every configuration, every piece of hardware that got installed. Especially one critical interface module, my creation, tucked into the core of the system during Phase 2 when their vendor's component kept overheating. I had brushed it off as a temporary patch, and they didn't question it as long as the graphs looked good for client reviews. They never logged it, never licensed it, never re-Danielsed it wasn't theirs. I called it FlowCore, a heartbeat engine I designed, built, and registered under my own company, Whitmore Integrated Systems, LLC. And the kicker? I own the patents, the manufacturing rights, and the licensing agreements they had overlooked entirely. The nationwide rollout they were so eager to brag about was literally running on my invention. But I didn't boast. I didn't make threats. I just signed the exit papers, shook HR's icy hand, and walked out with a severance check that barely covered lunch. Outwardly, I was another downsized employee. Inwardly, I was the storm on their horizon. Because FlowCore wasn't just hardware, it was leverage. And the second they tried SC Daniel in the system, without noticing the fine print, they'd find out just how costly their arrogance could be. This wasn't about revenge or bitterness, it was about value mine. And when the invoice landed in their inbox, they'd finally see the real price of underestimating the person who built their empire heartbeat by heartbeat. 2 days after I left, the press release dropped. Company X unveils revolutionary logistics sync system. Internally developed. Engineered for scale. Internally developed, they said. I actually laughed out loud. The announcement spread everywhere. Industry blogs, LinkedIn feeds, even a mid-tier tech magazine picked it up. Marcus's smug grin ended up splashed across a glossy magazine cover, arms folded like he'd personally soldered every wire inside the system. The headline called it a triumph of internal innovation. Not a single mention of the team. Definitely not a whisper of me. But honestly, I wasn't shocked. I'd seen this ego parade coming from miles away. Marcus was the kind of man who would take credit for the sunrise if someone gave him a PowerPoint long enough. Optics were his oxygen. He thrived on the illusion of being the visionary CEO revolutionizing logistics with his cutting-edge brilliance. And maybe he could have sold that story, if not for one inconvenient little truth. The beating heart of that entire system, FlowCore, didn't belong to him. It belonged to me. And I don't mean that in the "I worked really hard on it" sense. I mean legally, stamped, filed, and notarized at the U.S. Patent Office, mine. For years back, when I read Daniels, their vendors' sync modules overheated. If you so much as sneezed near them, I started tinkering late at night. Not because I was bitter, but because I refused to watch my name get tied to a disaster waiting to implode on launch day. So I built FlowCore, compact, efficient, seamless, and when it worked, I slid it quietly into production. The hardware lead gave me a lazy thumbs up, too busy clearing error logs to care where the solution came from. And the rest? They never tracked it, never registered it, never even noticed. Marcus and his board signed off on their flashy rollout roadmap, blissfully unaware that their golden goose was sitting on a controller licensed, if they'd read the fine print, to Whitmore Integrated Systems, LLC. So I waited. I let them toast their champagne, bask in headlines, polish their designer shoes for the victory lap they thought they'd earned, because I knew the clock was already ticking. And here's the secret no one but me understood. FlowCore wasn't designed to play nice forever. At midnight, the first Monday after I walked out, a scheduled update quietly went live through FlowCore's backend. Nothing illegal, nothing destructive, just a routine handshake check. If they didn't supply a VDanieled license key within 28 days, FlowCore would start tightening the screws, throttling the sync rate by 5% every 24 hours. Not catastrophic at first. Not enough to draw blood. But enough to slow operations, pile on delays, and turn their shiny $55 million pilot project into a sticky, sluggish nightmare. I didn't want revenge. I wanted leverage. And this? This was leverage with a pulse. By Thursday, I got my first bite. A LinkedIn message from Sophie, some finance analyst I barely remembered. "Hey Beatrix, quick question. Did we ever FinDaniels the asset transfer forms for your system modules? Trying to tie up loose ends." Loose ends. Cute. I let it sit unread. By the weekend, the polite little pings evolved into carefully worded voicemails, then sharp emails flagged as urgent, then calendar invites screaming high priority. I ignored every single one, because I already knew the rhythm of this dance. They wouldn't sound the alarms yet. They'd scramble in-house, confident they could duct tape over the issue, confident they didn't need me. But they did. Because FlowCore wasn't an add-on, it was the spine. I had woven it in so deep that no consultant, no quick patch, no workaround could ever pry it loose. By Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Noah, one of the few teammates I still had a soft spot for. "Not sure if you heard, but Ops is panicking. Sync delays everywhere. Ron's losing his mind. Everyone's blaming firmware." I just smiled, because I knew the truth. It wasn't a bug, it was a bill. And I was the one sending it. Week 2 rolled around, and the hairline cracks had turned into fractures. I didn't even need to peek at system logs anymore. The chaos started finding me. Noah again. They brought in a consultant from Orion Systems. Tried patching the sync issues. Total disaster. Everything's worse. I could picture it, some overpriced expert fumbling through FlowCore's architecture like a tourist squinting at a subway map upside down, convinced he knew the way, when really, he was just digging them deeper. I didn't build FlowCore to be flashy. I built her for one thing: precision. She wasn't just a chunk of hardware tucked into a rack somewhere. She was the brainstem, the central nervous system of their entire fulfillment operation. You couldn't duct tape over her. You couldn't swap her out for some off-the-shelf controller. And God knows, you couldn't replace her with a mass-market knockoff. But of course, they tried. By Wednesday, a text buzzed in from Daniel, a DevOps guy I barely knew, all sunshine and puppy energy back when I was still on the team. "Beatrix, they're running diagnostics on every sync controller. Ops is crawling, orders piling up, clients asking questions. Don't tell anyone you heard it from me." I didn't need to. FlowCore was already doing exactly what I had designed her to do. The handshake countdown kept ticking, 5% degradation every 24 hours beyond the license renewal deadline. By Friday, they were 10 days overdue, and the system was limping at 65% capacity. Deliveries dragged, fulfillment windows stretched like melted rubber bands, and the clients started sniffing around. Harborline Logistics, their crown jewel account, pulled a routine audit and flagged a 4-hour delay on a sync report. I heard about it through Noah, who got it from a warehouse lead, who got it straight from Ron. And Marcus? He completely lost it. Flung his coffee across the floor and swore the fallout would be serious. But here's the insane part, they still thought it was a glitch. A firmware hiccup. Something a patch could fix. They couldn't even imagine the redanialty. The expendable, project lead they shoved out the door had been holding the one key that kept their empire breathing. That weekend, the messages started coming straight from Marcus himself. Not HR. Not finance. Him. Beatrix, let's connect about IP clarifications. No hard feelings. Just want to tie up loose ends. Call me when you're free. I wasn't free. And trust me, the only hard feelings belong to him, not me. I didn't respond. Instead, I logged into FlowCore's dashboard. System integrity? Stable. Load balancing? Smooth. Sync throttle? 45% and counting. By Monday, they'd be underwater. And I wasn't gloating. I wasn't furious. I was calm. Because this wasn't sabotage, I wasn't killing their system. I was letting them bleed themselves dry. What still blows my mind, even now, is how blind they were. They never asked the one question that could have saved them. What's your price? Arrogance is a dangerous drug. They thought I'd fade away quietly. That I'd forget 4 years of sweat, weekends, and midnight coffee, erased by a severance check and a branded water bottle. But arrogance blinds people. And now it was about to cost them everything. By the 3rd week, the mask came off. The emails weren't polite anymore. Gone were the soft openers, hope you're well, or let's connect. Now it was, immediate action required. IP licensing confirmation. Urgent. Operational risk mitigation. Contact requested. Marcus even tried calling. Twice. Both times blocked. Not because I was playing games, but because I was giving them time. Time to understand the cost of underestimating me. But their grace period was gone. At exactly 5 a.m. Monday morning, the handshake countdown hit 0. FlowCore shifted into phase 2. No more gradual throttling. No more subtle warnings. She sent a full sync halt across the system. In an instant, order queues froze midstream. Warehouse drones stopped mid-route, blinking dumbly like toddlers told recess was over before they even got on the playground. Operations didn't just slow, they flatlined. And for the first time, they weren't staring at a glitch. They were staring at me. Inventory management flatlined. Conveyor belts froze mid-cycle. And the client dashboards? Wall-to-wall 404 errors. I didn't need a camera feed to picture it. An entire warehouse floor turned into a graveyard of blinking bots, operators slamming reboot buttons, Ron barking into a headset like volume could fix broken code, and Marcus pacing in slow, helpless circles as the empire he bragged about collapsed 1 silent second at a time. By 7:30 a.m. Noah sent me a photo, loading docks jammed with unsorted pallets, 2 red-faced managers in a screaming match over who had to call Eastbrook before Eastbrook called them. His caption was only 3 words, "It's a dumpster fire." And I smiled, because here's the thing about a system like this. It's not the crash that kills you, it's the timing. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Harborline Logistics had scheduled an in-person operations audit that very morning, sending in their VP of supply chain, a man infamous for tearing up contracts over a 5-minute delay. Marcus had to know it too, because at 9:20 a.m. sharp, my phone lit up. Not with an email. With a text. Beatrix, we need to talk. Please. No bravado, no smirks, no smug, useless staff dismissal. Just 2 words that carried all his panic. Please. Talk. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Because Marcus still thought this was a negotiation. I opened FlowCore's command interface instead. Logs clean. Integrity solid. Every process humming exactly as intended. This wasn't sabotage. This wasn't hacking. This was compliance. Compliance with the contract they never read, the agreement they never signed, and the rights they never imagined weren't theirs. And if they wanted FlowCore back online, they'd have to face a truth for years in the making. I wasn't their disposable project lead. I wasn't a technician they could shuffle around. I wasn't even a former employee anymore. I was the owner, the sole license holder, their silent partner. And partners don't beg for recognition, they send invoices. By noon, Marcus sent one final message: name your price. I stared at the screen, let the words hang in the air. Because this wasn't revenge. It wasn't personal. It was math. It was leverage. It was business. They had spent years making me feel grateful just to sit at their table. Now the roles had flipped. I wasn't looking for a seat. I owned the damn table. And the check for forgetting that had just arrived. I let Marcus sweat for 12 hours before I answered. Not because I needed to think, but because silence has a way of tightening the noose better than any words ever could. By the time I hit reply, they'd already run their third emergency reboot attempt. Noah sent me a screenshot of the floor dashboard, error messages stacked red on red, like a house of cards moments from collapse. Fulfillment delays, 72 hours. Client inquiries, tripled. Eastbrook's decision? Suspend all new orders until a technical review. Translation, one hiccup away from pulling the plug for good. That's when I drafted the email. Simple. Professional. Cold enough to frost glass. Marcus, attached is the licensing agreement for continued use of the FlowCore system, effective immediately upon signature and initial payment. Then I dropped the hammer. License fee, $90,000 per month. Retroactive to my departure date. Paid quarterly in advance. Non-transferable. Non-negotiable. Final clause, failure to comply within 48 hours results in permanent lockout and full deactivation of all sync functions. I signed it clean and sharp. Beatrix Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Integrated Systems, LLC. No apology. No flattery. Just business. I hit send, poured myself a coffee, and waited. By morning, a reply came not from Marcus, but from Lauren, their general counsel. Her email oozed with polished legalese, the kind of desperate courtesy that smells like fear. We believe there may have been a misunderstanding regarding the integration of proprietary components within our system architecture. We are eager to resolve this amicably and open to discussing licensing terms that reflect industry standards. Industry standards. I almost choked on my coffee. Industry standards didn't matter here. Not when the entire industry's heartbeat was pulsing inside a controller they didn't own. My reply was only one line. The terms are final. The countdown continues. 48 hours, that was the deadline ticking in my head like a bomb. By the following afternoon, my phone lit up with a direct call. Marcus. I let it ring twice just to feel him sweat before I picked up. Beatrix? His voice cracked ragged, like someone who hadn't closed his eyes in days. He stumbled through an apology, mumbling about the module, about me, about how they hadn't understood. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch until he rushed in to fill it. We want to fix this. I want to fix this. Whatever it takes. You've got the papers, just don't kill the company. And there it was, the shift. The same smug man who once smirked at me across a table and called me replaceable now sounded like a boy begging his mom not to take the car keys away. For a second, I almost pitied him. Almost. But pity wasn't part of my plan. I wasn't in this for revenge or sympathy. I was in it for value. So I laid it out, calm and precise. He would sign the agreement, and I'd take over integration as an independent consultant. His voice echoed my words back, like he needed to believe them to be real. Independent consultant. Correct, I told him. 6 months. Triple pay. Full amount up front. No gag orders. All technology stays under Whitmore Integrated Systems. He swallowed so loudly I almost smiled. And I'll need direct access to clients, I added. He went quiet, but I knew they had no other road left. My work was their backbone, and now that backbone carried my name. Finally, flat and beaten, he said, I'll have legal draft it. I nodded to myself, though he couldn't see it. By morning, I replied and cut the line before he found his pride again. This wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. I wasn't their employee anymore. their safety net, their backup plan. I was the only line keeping them from collapse. At 7:50 a.m. sharp, the signed contract hit my inbox. 6 months prepaid, triple my old salary, no NDAs, client access guaranteed, and all intellectual property locked to me. Everything I demanded. Everything they swore they'd never give. By 9:10 a.m. I walked back into the same glass office I'd been shoved out of 3 weeks earlier. Only this time, I didn't carry a severance envelope, I carried leverage. Marcus met me at the door, shoulders sagging, eyes darting to the badge clipped to my coat. It didn't say staff. It didn't even say consultant. It said owner, Whitmore Integrated Systems. The smirk was gone, replaced by the hollow look of a man who'd lost a fight he never saw coming. I smiled, professional, polite, and ice-cold, and brushed past him. By 9:25 a.m., I was on the warehouse floor, and it was chaos. Pallets jammed into wrong terminals, bots stalled mid-route, supervisors screaming into dead radios, managers scrolling error logs like they were written in code from another planet. I didn't scold. I didn't shout. I plugged in my secure drive, launched FlowCore's restoration protocol, and watched the system breathe again. Monitors flickered back to life. Sync integrity climbed to 99.8%. Within 90 seconds, the heartbeat was steady. The whole floor exhaled like a drowning man pulled above water. I said nothing, the results spoke for me. Marcus hovered close, waiting for a smug "I told you so." He got silence. Because this wasn't about proving a point. This was about building what they almost destroyed and reminding everyone who really kept the wheels turning. At 11:15 a.m., I called a huddle, managers, engineers, operators, all of them. I didn't stand in front of them as staff or even as a contractor. I stood as their equal, their partner. "I'm not here to patch your mistakes," I told them, voice steady. "I'm here to make this system work for your clients and for the people who've been carrying this load while leadership looked the other way. No sugarcoating. No fake promises." The room went dead quiet, but then I saw them, Noah, Ali, a few others from those endless late nights when only the grinders showed up. And they nodded, because they knew. They'd been the gears hidden in the shadows while people like Marcus strutted under the spotlight. Finally, someone was standing with them, not above them. I stayed 2 more hours, walking the floor, listening, taking notes, not for reports, not for PR, but for the blueprint of the next phase. My phase. This wasn't a rescue. This was a takeover. At 2:30 p.m., I walked out the same doors I came through, head high, back straight. No applause, no theatrics, just quiet, professional control. Before leaving, I caught Marcus staring down at me from his office window. Our eyes locked. I smiled, a slow, unshakable smile, the kind you give when you've won without raising your voice. Because I hadn't just saved their company. I had saved myself from a system that chews people up, from a culture that mistakes numbers for worth. And maybe, just maybe, from ever doubting what I bring to the table again. Some people think power is the loudest voice in the room. They're wrong. Real power is knowing your value, holding your line, and never letting anyone make you forget it. Not for money. Not for titles. Not even for revenge. True power moves quiet. It waits. And when the time comes, nothing on earth can stop it.